It's 4:30, and I'm your speaker. I'm going to be talking about engineering and entrepreneurship and product development. I used to teach in this room, and it's still a mess. Do you like how the chairs are all scattered about? Big hole here, and everybody's all
These things always hit you when you try to sit down.
Yeah, right. So feel free to move wherever you want to. I think some of you look familiar. Maybe I can do a little survey. How many people, has anybody heard this speech before? Maybe?
Did we have it last year? Is it the same?
Yeah, yeah. Okay, two of you. Okay, maybe you can ask questions then. How many people here are like freshmen or sophomore? Okay, the rest are juniors and seniors? Okay, so you've been around. How many are studying some type of engineering? Oh, that's why you came. Okay, good. You're not. What are you studying?
I'm studying special education.
Okay. Okay, so.
I'm in ethics, so I have to take 10 PEs.
Oh, okay. So you're here because you have to. Okay. Okay. So engineers. I'm going to talk about how many people are familiar with our Entrepreneurship Certificate program? Anybody in it now? No? You are?
Yeah.
Good. Are you going to get the certificate?
Yeah.
Great.
Next semester.
Next semester? All righty. Okay, so there is a Certificate of Entrepreneurship program at Purdue, and it's open to all majors, every major, and every year, so freshman to graduate school. And it requires 5 courses, an entry-level 200 course in entrepreneurship, and then a 310 course in entrepreneurship. Those are the 2 core courses. And then 2 option courses and a capstone. If you're an engineering student, you can most likely get the certificate with just taking those 2 classes.
Yeah, my senior design will be my capstone, and then I was able to take one of the optional ones. I took VIP, and that also counted towards my certificate.
Right. So we've worked with every school on campus to have some of the courses that are part of your curriculum also count toward the certificate. So if you're interested in exploring that, you can talk to your advisor or me, or we have our own academic advisor, and her name is Rita Baker. And so when you graduate, you get 2 diplomas. You get your actual diploma plus a certificate of entrepreneurship. I know just from, we have the IR here, and some of my students were saying that being part of the certificate program kind of set them apart a little bit from other students, and they were getting interviews and things, so they were pretty excited about it. So I'm here to talk to you about engineering and entrepreneurship and product development, because what do they have in common? First of all, I'll talk a little bit about myself, just so you know that I'm somewhat qualified to talk about this topic. I am an engineer. I did go to Purdue many, many, many years ago. I have an industrial engineering degree from Purdue. And when I left Purdue, I got recruited to work for a small company you probably never heard of called Procter & Gamble. And so I worked for Procter & Gamble for 27 years. And then I've had my own business since 2008, and I've done work for a Solo Cup company. I'm sure you all see those red cups that you use on the weekends. I also worked for Velcro Group Corporation. I worked for an energy efficiency company. And I've been teaching here since 2015. So I have a pretty deep background in engineering and product development. So when you talk about the different aspects, I mean, people throw around words all the time. You ever hear the word innovation, right? What does innovation mean to you as engineers? Have a definition of what that is? Yep. Making things better. That's cool. That's good. Yep.
Finding new
new ways to solve problems, right? What about okay, so I was gonna go off on that. I'll just stay here for a minute and go through my background. So I have worked in innovation, developed businesses that are in excess of $1 billion, from the idea all the way to the execution of them. Done global portfolio management, so product development. Product development is similar to innovation. It's where you're taking a product and developing it all the way through the various stages to take it to market. Entrepreneurs do that all the time, but so do large companies. Large companies are constantly upgrading their products, offering new products, changing their current ones, and that's all done through a product development function within a company. I'm an inventor, so I have 4 patents that I've had. So that's part of product development. And then marketing. Oh, that's right. This doesn't work on there. I was wondering. It works here, but not there. Marketing. So B2b and B2c marketing. As engineers, you probably don't have a lot of business classes. So anybody guess what B2b and B2c means?
Business to business, business to consumer.
Correct. Business to business and business to consumer. My best example for this is you can go to Target and you can buy Solo cups, right? And you see Solo cup and it's got a label and you can buy it. It goes right to you. If you go to Starbucks and you look at the lid, chances are it's a Solo cup lid. So Solo cup sells cups to Starbucks, which is business to business, and they also sell it to the consumer, which is business to consumer, where you can go buy their products on the store shelf. So there's lots of companies that are very successful that are business to business companies. One of the biggest ones that we have in Indiana now is Salesforce down in Indy. They primarily sell their software to other businesses. That's business to business. Business to consumer is all the things you're wearing and you eat every day, and your computers and things you use on a personal basis. And then I've had quite extensive background in doing licensing of intellectual property. So I did that for about 5 years at P&G, where I worked with small inventors and entrepreneurs and brought technology into P&G and then took P&G technology out to others. So let's talk about innovation, making things better. I told you I have 4 patents, okay? What's the difference between an invention and innovation? Yes?
Invention is a noun, innovation is the verb, the action of innovating, of moving forward, of being on the tip of the spear.
Correct. That's totally correct. I've never heard anybody talk about it. But you're right. An invention is an invention. And if you look at the patent database, we're up to almost 9 million and plus inventions. So many of them have never been commercialized. They're just patents. They have not been transformed into a business, into a product, into something that's making money. So innovation is that transformation of taking an idea and commercializing it. If it doesn't make money, if it doesn't hit the market, it's really not innovation. It doesn't necessarily have to be an invention. It can be a new way to do something. It could be an app. It can be any kind of thing that generates revenue. So you have the creative part of it. What are the theories? You have product and process. In product development, I would develop products as well as the equipment that we would have to use to make the products. Because typically, if you come up with a new product, it's not like there's a machine out there that can make it. And so engineers are involved in both aspects of that, developing the product itself, the physical aspects of the products, but also developing the equipment and the processes to put those products in the market. And I went backwards. And then these processes are the same, and you can either choose a route of entrepreneurship, means that you are the founder of a company. I keep going backwards there, sorry. Thank you. You are the founder of the company. You're the one who's going to take this to market. Or you can choose to use these same skills inside an organization, inside a company. Anybody have an internship, engineering internship? Where at?
Raytheon.
Oh, Raytheon, big government contractor. And what were you doing? Well, all they do is development, right? And so what did you do?
Can't say.
Oh, you can't say. Well, you worked on you worked on product or services or something. Yes. So you were doing this inside the company, right? How about you? Where did you work?
Most recently, Dynamic Attractions.
And what do they do?
Theme park rides, indoor rides.
Oh,
Also can't talk about what I worked on.
Oh,
sure.
They told me I can't talk about what I worked on, but I'm not going to play that game. So I worked for DRI Relays. We made mechanical relays for aerospace applications, went into a lot of the military's planes. We went up in space, they're on the space station. So little mechanical relays, lots of cool applications.
So that's product development.
Yeah, primarily 28 volt and 110 volt DC.
So when they do tell you that you can't talk about it, you can't share the details. I mean, it is public knowledge that your company makes relays.
Mhm.
It's on their website,
Yeah.
right? So you can talk about it. So you can talk about the things that are public knowledge, which you can't disclose with those non-disclosure things.
Anybody wants to know anything I learned from talking to me, I'm not going back.
So you were doing entrepreneurship. You were doing product development within the organization. And then, so why, okay. So entrepreneurship is the art of taking an idea, a concept, and transforming it into something of value. Nice to, what people think it looks like is, you just start here and you just keep going. But it's really not that way. It's a lot of twists and turns. It's a lot of one step forward, two steps backwards, a lot of learning, a lot of changing. So I'm biased. I think that engineers have an extreme advantage in the world of entrepreneurship. And why? As engineers, you know what's possible, right? You're a elementary education, so you know how to educate elementary students, but you don't know what's possible from a technology standpoint out there, do you? No. And that's not a bad thing. We need people to do what you're doing. And so, but engineers, you're exposed to what's possible. I mean, what's possible, what's out there, all new technologies. You can also understand the voice of the customer. And that's one of the, when companies aren't doing well with the product development cycle, it's usually because they don't have their engineers talking directly with the customers. There's some sort of in-between person translating, and that's not very effective. But you can, when somebody tells you they have a need, you can transform it into something that's really happening because you know what's possible, and you can listen to what they're saying and say, oh, I know how to solve that problem. And you also have great problem-solving skills. And so if you know what's possible, you start with what's necessary, and then you add what's possible, and suddenly you're doing the impossible. I mean, that's what Elon Musk is trying to do. That's what people who are...
Sorry, I work for General Motors, so like, my reputation for him soiled.
General Motors is trying to do the same thing. I mean, they're looking into driverless cars, and I mean, they're all doing these sort of things. So they just do them in different ways and in different levels. He's trying to take people to space and live in Mars, right? All right. So I really encourage in entrepreneurship, it's all about listening to your customer. It's all about trying to understand what their needs are. And as an engineer, you can do that in a way that other people can't. And when somebody says, I have this problem that I need to solve, you have skills to go figure out how to solve them. And you can hear things differently than other people. Because of your technical background, you'll hear what they're saying in a whole different way. And this is kind of a sad, this is a sad sort of story, but this is what happens in a lot of organizations. Entrepreneurs can't really make this happen. If you're working on a project and somebody else told you what all the requirements are and then those requirements change, you got to start all over. So that's not a good example of how an entrepreneur should develop a product. You all know the problem-solving steps, right? Identify the problem, develop alternatives, select the best one, implement. Developing alternatives. That's something that you have a different type of skill set that you can use to develop things. So if you're going to build a product that exceeds the customer's needs, what do you need? You have to know what they want, right? And you have to know how to deliver it to them. What are the features, the designs, what are the user experience, and how is it different? How is it different than what's already out there? And how to make it different. So product development. Major corporations, GM has a huge product development organization. They build those concept cars, right? And every year, this is what the world has become. Every year, companies have to come out with something new. You can't just develop one product and think, oh, I'm done, never have to change that. I can keep selling it the way it is forever. Doesn't happen that way. Every year. So they have large organizations and they're saying, what are all these ideas that we have that we can build into our products? What are new technologies we can incorporate into our cars? What are new materials that are available to maybe lightweight them so that they have better fuel efficiency? What are more fuel efficiency sort of projects? So they're going to take all those different ideas and they're going to sort through them and they're going to evaluate them. I forgot these are touch screens. They're going to evaluate them and they're going to narrow them down into what can they reasonably do in the next year, in the next 2 years, the next 5 years. And then they're going to allocate resources to them and execute them. So as an engineer, you have just this wide variety of places you can be making relays. You could be engineering new materials that can go to the moon or to Mars. The moon, who cares about that anymore, right? We've done that so long ago, right? New materials, new code, writing new code, new algorithms. How are you going to incorporate virtual reality into cars? AI into cars. Those are things that continually have to work, and as engineers, you can solve these problems. Typically, if you go to work for a company, 80% of companies use some sort of stage gate process. And you most likely, no matter what function you'll be in, you'll probably be in a multifunctional team and be exposed to some sort of stage gate process. It's where they come up with an idea, they put a small team on it to gather some data with success criteria. If you meet that criteria, you move to the next stage. And you continually have different criteria, and as long as you keep meeting the criteria, you'll continue to get resources. Agile, how many computer software engineers in here? Okay, you familiar with Agile? Nobody's familiar with Agile? Agile was developed in the software world, and instead they used to have a waterfall method. Like the guy in the cartoon, he just went and was going to code everything all till the very end, and then they would release it and find out that either it didn't meet the customer's needs or it didn't work the way it was intended. So now they'll break it down into very small little pieces of the software project, like how do you log in? And then they'll go build that and they'll test it and develop it and release that part. And then they'll look at how do you change your password. And so they've broken it down into much smaller steps and they'll test it. Is that how your experience of?
Pretty close, yeah.
Pretty close.
Pretty accurate.
Okay. The problem that typically happens in a non-software company, like GM's not a software company. They have a lot of software, but they consider themselves a car company, not a software company. Like Google would be a software company. That some of the nomenclature they use in the Agile thing, like the product owner and things like that, gets confused with the different functions in like marketing and things like that. So the other thing you have an advantage of is project management. You're in EPICS. You're managing projects, right? You have a budget, you have resources, you have a timeline, you have things you have to deliver, you're being held accountable for the decisions the teams are making, correct? These are really important skills to have. They're important skills to have as an entrepreneur, but they're also important skills to have in a corporation. And so you're developing these project management skills that quite often other majors don't get exposed to. And these are very, very important. You can actually get a certification in project management. Did you know that?
From here.
I don't know if we can do it on here. There's the Project Management Institute. You can be it's a PMP.
Yeah, you told me about that.
Did I? Okay. All right, you can get a certification. Yes?
Where I worked this past summer, they required that certification to become like a manager, basically.
Really? They did? For, where was this? Whirlpool. Oh, they're a good company. I know some people who used to work at Whirlpool up in Michigan. And what did you do there?
I worked on dryer performance and algorithms, so how they run based on the program.
So there's software in a dryer now?
Yeah, they use
Wow.
microprocessors and microcontrollers.
Wow. And so you worked on some projects, and the people who were leading the projects had to be certified project manager.
My manager, all our emails say manager, PMP.
Right.
Yeah.
PMP. I don't know. You can ask your professors here. I mean, it would be kind of nice if you could graduate with that certification, but I think you have to, it's kind of like Six Sigma. You need to have some sort of practical application where you've proven that you can do it, not just theory. But there's, 5 categories. How do you initiate a project? How do you plan for it? You guys are all doing that as part of EPICS, right? Some of them have already been initiated and you're just inheriting them this semester, right? But you're planning, you're executing, you're monitoring and controlling, and then you're closing it out. So these are all important functions that have. Project management also involves all the functions usually in an organization. And as an entrepreneur, it's really important to manage these things because that's your company and you're trying to launch a new product. And so being able to talk with people from quality. Quality people typically are engineers. You can take classes in quality here, can't you? You used to be able to. It's all based on statistics, very scientific. It's not an easy job. So you understand that. Procurement, human resource, risk management. I'm sure you're taking some classes around risk. Yes? Like what are they called now? Psychology? No.
An ECE degree?
Hmm?
An EPC degree taking the risk?
Yeah, that is a risk. How to assess risk in, capital purchases and things of that sort, you know.
I don't think we
Okay. So, today, compared to when I graduated, you need to have different things. Leadership. When I graduated, nobody really talked about leadership. It wasn't a focus. Where I worked, it was a focus, but Procter & Gamble hired people only at the entry level and grew them as their own internal leaders. But not until after I left college did I really understand leadership. Now it's a requirement for you guys, right? Part of it is getting here. You had to show some sort of level of leadership to get into Purdue. You're going to have to show that to get into your co-ops or your internships, right? Anybody go to IR today? Did they ask about leadership qualities? What did you talk to many people?
Yeah,
Really? Because you didn't have to wait in the 3-hour-long
that
line?
was yesterday. Their lines were a lot shorter today.
Oh, really? I wonder why.
Well, some of them, like Rolls Royce were still pretty long, but like the smaller ones were pretty small.
Okay, so did you get any good leads?
I think so, hopefully.
And they all asked, give me an example of leadership.
I think only like half of them asked.
Okay,
A lot of them I just told outright,
okay.
so they didn't have to ask. So,
Oh, you had your own pitch.
right, yeah.
I feel like a leader would assert themselves properly.
Maybe, right, right. They could be a humble servant leader as opposed to a different.
Servant is a different time than when you're going to the career fair. Career fair, you got to put on the mask.
Yeah,
Fame.
okay.
Danger to confuse arrogance with confidence.
Yes, very much so. When I started at Procter & Gamble and the R&D organization, they told me that I would never, probably ever in my entire career, launch a product. And I said, what are all these people doing here if they're not launching products? And at that time, they would spend 10, 15, 20 years working on a technology, and maybe it would launch, maybe it wouldn't. Doesn't happen anymore. Then in 1990, I had the first project that from the concept, from the idea till it being on the store shelf was 1 year. So I had to figure out, we didn't have tools to do that. We had to come up with new processes to be able to do things quicker. Now, every day the world is changing. It is changing so fast. I just sometimes feel like we're spinning, the earth is spinning on its axis much faster than it used to, because technology is moving so quickly. New technologies are being invented. Companies are growing and shrinking, and there's all kinds of influences globally with trade relations and things like that affect businesses. You, as a generation, have to be more adept than any other previous generation on managing shifting goals. Any internships that they had where you said, you're going to work on this project, and then midstream they kind of changed it on you? Right? Did they? What'd they say? Oh, we don't need that anymore, we need you to go do this? How'd that feel?
you have to like adapt.
Right.
Kind of like schedules change and get allocate resources in other places.
Right. And it's what? You were there for 3 months?
Yeah.
And they couldn't figure out what you were going to do for that 3 months. No. And it's not because they're bad managers. It's just the way the world is. And you've got to be adept at shifting your goals. Entrepreneurs have to be even more adept at this. If they launch something that's not working, they have to change it and try it again. Be persistent. You have to be able to communicate with so many different kinds of people. Electrical engineer has to compute, you have to talk to the software people, right? relays, right? Did you do any embedded systems?
No, they told me it was an electrical engineering job, but I did mechanical engineering the whole summer in SolidWorks.
Oh, yeah. Okay. You're constantly talking to one another. So you have to